Okay, thank you for coming back. Brilliant. I'm just going to continue with this so you can see what the back view is going to look like and how we can use this technical drawing to do that without drawing the whole thing again. So what I've done while she was away, if you checked out my draw cord tutorial, you will see how to do these draw cords. We're just going to move them a little bit closer to the centre front actually. And if we select one and select the other, we can also make sure that they're aligned at the top edge. So if I go with the black arrow tool, show you again, hopefully you've grouped these. So if I use the black arrow tool, hold the shift key and select the other one at the same time, I can then go to the main menu bar up here, which has some options for how you can align your objects. If you can't see that here, if you go to Windows, Align, that will also pop up as a dialog box as well. So I'm just going to click Align Vertical Center Top, so you can see they're now aligned quite nicely. The other thing that I did whilst we were away was actually just to randomize this sort of zigzag. And what I mean by that is when you're reflecting it, you're going to get the same waviness on this side as you do on this side, which is not really realistic in terms of actual garments and how they're constructed. It's just like gathers, you can't really have symmetrical gathers. So what I did is I got my white arrow tool and I started to move some of these points and flatten them out a bit so they became less regimented, and so they weren't sort of symmetrical on one side. So you can see it's a little less regimented, which is how we kind of want it to look. So now we've got our full front. What we're going to do is let's just group this together. So we're going to get our black arrow tool and we're going to hover over the whole garment and we're going to do Command C to copy, and we're going to do Command V to paste it on the other page. So now I can put it right on the right place where it should be on the back panel. Let's just move over to this actually and work on this page now. We close my alignment. And for this we're going to have to delete some parts. So what we're going to do is we don't actually need these draw cords anymore. We can see that the waistband does actually change. So if I click on the waistband here, I'm going to just move that to one side and I'm going to delete my draw cords by getting my black arrow tool, clicking on that draw cord and pressing delete. Again, black arrow tool, clicking on the other one and pressing delete. So now you can kind of see where we're going with this. So if I click on this now, because I want to be able to see what else happens on the back panel of these joggers, so I'm just going to get rid of the fill for the purpose so I can see exactly what's going on. Now because this photograph isn't lying completely flat, the pocket is some way off the side seam. So what we need to do is to remember that and actually negate for that. So what I'm going to do is get my my pen tool, and I'm just going to go across and I'm going to pull back slightly so that I'm not actually going off the edge of that pocket. So I've just shifted it down a bit. The other option to do would be to do the full pocket so it is going off the edge. Notice how I've kept this quite straight. I haven't followed the waviness of this pocket. And now I'm just going to select it with my black arrow tool and I can just use my mouse to move it across. So it's quite easy. It's probably easier to do that. Now to do my stitching up my pocket, again, very easy. Black arrow tool. So I'm going to select the pocket. I'm going to do Command C, Command F, and then I'm going to drag inwards. So I'm going to get my black arrow tool and drag in one of the corners. And you can see I've got exactly the same shape pocket, but what I need to do now is apply some dash stitching or a dash line. So in the stroke section, you will see, if you don't see all of this actually, what tends to happen is it kind of gets hidden. So if you don't have your stroke showing here, if you go to Windows, then scroll down to stroke, you will get this dialog box. So I'm going to select dash line, and I'm also going to change my weight now to be much finer. So I want it to be 0.5. Going to change the numbers in the dash. So when you're doing stitching, the dash normally is larger than the gap. So here you can see the dash is at 1.5 and the gap is going to be 1. So that's literally just by clicking in the box and typing away. Now you can see straight away that there's stitching that has appeared, so I'm quite happy with that. I'm going to delete this top stitch here, because if I actually look at the original, I can see that that stitch is a little bit lower. So I'm just going to delete it here, and I'm just going to redraw it in slightly lower as it is on the photograph. And I'm also going to move these points so they're slightly up. Because this is twin needle now, if I get my black arrow and I click on the stitch in and do the same thing, Command C, Command F, which brings it to the front, you won't be able to see it, but when I hover over the corner and drag inwards towards the center of the pocket, you'll see that that line is still there. So again, I can get my white arrow tool and I can maneuver the rest of the stitching so it is in line with the pocket edge. And again, you can keep doing that until you add all the stitch line details. And I've got one line here. I'm going to hold my Alt key till I get the two-way arrow. And then I'm going to drag downwards. And again, I'm going to do exactly the same thing again. So I've got my triple needle stitch in there. Now to finish off, I can continue adding all the stitching as I see fit. What I'm going to do now is just quickly do my back waistband. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can either manipulate what you have here, or you can just literally do exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to delete this because I don't want to manipulate it. I'm going to get my pen tool. I'm going to do a straight line from here. I'm going to make sure that my weight is 2. That. Let's move that over a bit. And I'm going to apply the zigzag. So if I go to effects, I should already have my apply zigzag at the top. If I don't have that, I will have to go to distort and transform and zigzag. But in this case, I'm just going to go apply zigzag. And you can see it's already applied the same waviness, or the same, the same waviness as you see on the front. I'm going to hold my black, I'm going to get my black arrow key, make sure this is selected. I'm going to click on the Alt and drag downwards. So I now got 2 lines. I need to extend this line so it finishes right at the waistband. So I'm going to do that now by using my black arrow tool and dragging to one side, dragging to the other side. And then what I'm going to do is get my black arrow tool, select this line, hold the shift key and select the line above. And then I'm going to expand these two again by going to Objects, Expand Appearance. Just like what we did with the front. Now I need to just extend this a little bit so I can see the end at least. Get my pen tool, hover over the last point, click when I see it change to the minus, and now I can join it to the top line. Again, I can do the same to this side, wait for the cursor to change, or when I see the white square get larger, click on there, and when I've gone to the last point here, I can see there's now a circle, which is telling me that that line is now going to be a closed shape. So once I've done that, I can now manipulate or move these points back to where they should be. So using my white arrow tool, I'm going to move that to 1, so it's in line with the side seams. And I'm going to move the other one so it's in line with the side seams. So now I've got my waistband here. I'm going to fill it with a colour. So I'm going to fill it with the white. I'm going to do Command C, Command F. And so now I have another copy of my waistband. I'm going to do exactly the same thing I did with the front. Take the fill off. Just draw a straight line through the centre. It doesn't matter that it goes past that waistband, because remember when we use the clipping mask, it will mask out everything that's within or outside that shape. So let's go to our brushes. Again, if you can't see your brushes, Windows brushes, alternatively click on your action toolbar, click on your stroke. Let's move this down a bit, or move this up a bit so that it's fitting nicely in. We need to make sure that this shape is to the front, so we're going to click on the shape, right click arrange, bring to the front, get our black arrow tool, select around the brush and the shape, then click Command 7 for the clipping mask, that's Command 7. Then all we're going to do is get our shape, move this upwards, and then we're going to get our black arrow tool, select around both the brush, the clipping mask and the panel, and we're going to group that, Command G. Now we can move that back into the right place. And we can fill in our shape now. So if I just get my black arrow tool, I can fill in by just dragging over this section here and giving it a white fill colour. And you can already see how I've managed to complete that. So now what I'm going to do is take the template layer off. We have one last thing that we need to complete on this. Let me just go back. I'm going to be a little bit picky here, and I'm going to grab this and just make sure that it's in the right place. It should be in line with the side seam. So now I've got this with my black arrow tool. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to do Command C, and then I'm going to go to my front panel and I'm going to do Command V. And I need to put this so that this is behind this shape. So what I've done is I've placed it there, right click, arrange, send to the back. I need to manipulate it, so making sure that it doesn't get seen at the side seam, so I can move that in, move it down so it's kind of joining. And again, if you find that you're having these areas here where it's missing, you just need to get your white arrow tool and move that point upwards so it's joined. So now we can join this side or group this side with the black arrow tool, selecting around everything, Command G, and we're going to select around everything here just to make sure that's grouped, and Command G. We can put this on the same page, we can right click, arrange, send to the back. So now we have our completed jogger from start to finish, just a basic jogging bottoms for a young child. You can continue restyling it, changing it, adding knee pads, adding pockets, adding stitching down the centre front. The world is your oyster, so enjoy. Thank you for watching.